Alright guys, this is Jake and Jed Packard with Packard Performance. We have a 2011 Polaris RZR S that we're going to do an install of one of our turbo kits on. So we're just going to kind of use this video to answer a lot of the questions that a lot of you guys have had as trying to install your turbo kits. This particular RZR has been torn down to the point where we're ready to install the turbo. So you can kind of see the bed obviously comes off. The header's been removed. We've torn off the entire intake track, so the intake track has come off. Throttle body, intake manifold. You don't necessarily need to disconnect anything on them, just detach them from the RZR. You can see the exhaust back all the way to the muffler has been removed. So keep it easy, just make sure that you don't even attempt the install until your RZR is torn down up until this point. Jed, anything to chime in on this part?
No.
Okay.
That covers it.
Now over here we've actually laid out the entire turbo kit. At Packard Performance we're always striving to change, modify, and make our products better. So there have been a few generations of this turbo kit. What we have made sure is the performance is consistent through the lot. But this one here is a turbo kit that has all the individual components laid out. We're actually going to have Jed will walk you through which components are here, and then as we pick them up and install each piece, we'll make sure that we tell you exactly what that piece is, where it goes, so that when you do your install you can do the same. We recommend pulling the kit out, like when you get it, pull it out onto a clean surface, a carpet or something like this, and lay everything out there.
First, we're going to start with installing the hot side of the turbo kit. So you're going to need your header, you're going to need your turbo, your muffler, and the brackets for the muffler, as well as your nuts and bolts. First, we'll put the header on. We're going to need some high temp silicone gasket maker, and you're going to need a 12mm wrench. Supplied with the kit is new studs. So you're going to screw each of the studs into your head. With a 4mm Allen wrench. Snug them up. You don't need to get them super tight. So once you got those 4 studs in, you also got to remember to put the stud in the back of the cylinder or the head. Always feed it in with this side where you put the Allen wrench in through this side of the mount. So you'll go in through here. Next, you're going to want to apply the high temp silicone gasket maker right around the base where the seal is going to meet onto the head. Be sure to use the lock washers on each of these nuts. Some customers have had a problem where the nut will actually hit the header. You don't need to grind the header. If that's the case, just loosen this mount up here so you can slide the header off just a little bit, and that will give you enough clearance to be able to get the nuts in on each of the spots so it doesn't hit the header.
And then make sure you cycle tighten them. Don't tighten one down all the way without putting the other ones on and getting them started. So it's best just to hand tighten all of them before you start using a wrench to cinch them down. You can see the exhaust header is installed, ready to rock. So now we'll actually take and install the turbo. Let's do a close-up of the turbo here, Jed. You can see this is a turbo unique to Packard Performance.
One thing to point out, some of our turbos have a brass bung built into it here. This is going to be going to your wastegate. If you have...
And Jed, this tube right here would control what on the turbo? Going to the wastegate?
It controls the boost. So it's going to be going to this. This is the piece that is going to be bolting on right here, which your air filter goes onto. If you have this style of intake manifold, your turbo is not going to have this. So you're going to be using one of these to go to that wastegate right there instead of this. Installing your turbo, you're going to need the 4 bolts with these lock nuts on there. Again, you're going to be using high heat silicone maker, gasket maker. We do include these gaskets. If you choose to use them, you can. We've also had great luck with just using high temp silicone gasket maker. So today we're just going to go ahead and use this. And again, you're only going to need it around right here, this area. Now for these bolts, you're going to need either a 13mm wrench or a 1/2 inch wrench.
And make sure you do the same thing on this. You want to systematically tighten each one of the corners before you tighten one all the way down. So do a few turns on one, a few turns on the other, a few turns on the other, and then come back and cinch everything down super tight.
One other thing to point out, if you need a little bit more of movement or alignment once you get your downpipe and muffler installed, you can loosen these back up and you can actually move your turbo up or down a little bit to give you a little bit more movement so things line up better for you. One other thing to point out, if you need a little bit more of movement or alignment once you get your downpipe and muffler installed, you can loosen these back up and you can actually move your turbo up or down a little bit to give you a little bit more movement so things line up better for you.
See, the turbo is on. Make sure you pay attention to the way everything's pointing.
So here's your downpipe. The screws that you're going to need is these 5 shorter ones. They're also a 13mm wrench. And just like the other 2 pieces we just put on, we're going to apply the high temp silicone gasket maker around this piece as well. We also supply that stainless gasket if you want to use that as well, but today we're just going to use this. Now sometimes you have to play with them a little bit. It's good to leave all of them pretty loose, just started, until you get all of them in and started correctly. You want to make sure you don't cross thread any of these bolts, and by leaving it loose it gives you more room to play with to make sure you get it all started correctly. And one thing that happens when welding these pieces up, they do tend to warp a little bit, and that's where you're going to have sometimes a little bit of hard time getting each of the screws in. You just gotta, like Jake said, massage it, get it in the right position, and then you can, once you get them all started, then you can tighten them down and you'll be good. And it's always a good idea, once you've gotten your kit installed, once you've ran some heat through it and gotten some runs on it, you're going to want to go through and retighten everything. Okay, there's your downpipe. One thing to point out over here is you'll see we've built in an O2 sensor bung. We do not include the wideband with our kits, but we definitely put this in so you have that option, which is something we highly recommend you do.
Alright, next comes this bad boy here.
So what you're going to need for this particular piece is you're going to need both the clamps that we've provided, both this large T clamp and this crimp clamp. You're going to need your muffler brackets as well as the bolt for installing that. We'll start by installing the muffler bracket. That goes just right here where your existing rubber exhaust mount is. Again, you'll need either a 1/2 inch wrench or a 13mm wrench on both sides to tighten this guy up. You don't need to go extremely tight on it. You want it good and snug. It's got a rubber mount, so it is going to flex. Go ahead and slide your muffler over your downpipe.
And just slide it on. There's a natural stop you'll feel once you get it on there. That's how you know you've come far enough. And you can see Jed's rolling the big stainless T-clamp around the muffler, tying it into the muffler mount, sticking down there. Using an 11mm socket and or wrench, go ahead and cinch down the T-clamp. You see the muffler is a full stainless muffler. This particular one has the quiet core insert. So when it's all said and done, you double your stock horsepower and you end up being just as quiet or quieter than a stock razor. And as you can see, with that T-clamp tight, the hot side of the turbo is done. Walk you over and do one more view of the exhaust manifold or header right here. And now we'll start the intake side, get the intercooler mounted up, get the injectors installed and the power commander installed.